timeless voices of the Eternal Church.
John Bradford, London, July 1, 1555. There but for the grace of God go I. John Bradford was the first person on record to have made this new familiar confession. He was in prison at the time for his faith, but his comment concerned a condemned criminal he observed on his way to execution. Bradford knew firsthand about God's grace. Born in 1510, he received a good education and earned a good living serving under John Harrington, the paymaster to King Henry VIII's forces fighting in France. However, at some point, Bradford helped Harrington cheat the king out of a large sum of money. He did not profit personally, but was somehow party to the swindle. While Bradford was studying law, a fellow student presented the gospel to him, and Bradford converted to the Protestant Christian faith. Unwilling to take further role in the money scheme, he quit working for Harrington and enrolled at Cambridge to study theology. Still, his conscience was not at peace, and he made every effort to make restitution, at one point proposing to hire himself out as a bondsman to repay the sum. So distraught was he that he sold his personal jewelry and gave his money to the poor. He became a much-loved preacher throughout the London, not harsh or condemning as one might think, given his own sense of guilt, but compelling. In 1550, during the reign of Edward VI, Bishop Ridley commissioned Bradford to be a roving chaplain. However, when Edward died in 1553, the springtime for Protestantism in England crashed under the reign of Bloody Mary Tudor. In the 5 years that she reigned, nearly 300 people were condemned to death for heresy. Within a month, Mary's agents arrested Bradford on an insignificant charge and threw him into the Tower. In the 2 years following, he wasted no time but preached to all who would listen and wrote encouraging letters to believers throughout England. He so gained the trust of his jailers that they regularly gave him passes from the prison to go visit the sick and needy, knowing that on his word he would be returning by evening. For a time, he shared a cell with 3 fellow reformers who also became martyrs: Hugh Litimer, Nicholas Ridley, and Thomas Cranmer. It was in this fellowship, spent studying the New Testament and encouraging one another, that Bradford found peace for his soul. The scriptures made it clear that the sacrifice of Christ upon the cross was perfect, holy, and complete. God did not require any other, not even the restitution that he could not pay. At last, he understood grace and was able to say when he saw others going to execution for crimes like he'd committed, "There but for the grace of God go I." Finally, in January 1555, he was condemned for heresy with no mention of the ancient financial affair. He was burned at the stake along with another martyr, John Leaf, on July 1, 1555. The authorities planned the execution for 4 in the morning to avoid the crowds of those who loved Bradford. But word spread and thousands showed up, delaying the event until 9 o'clock. Voice of the Hero. Bradford wrote the following inscription in a friend's New Testament. This book is called the Word of the Cross because the cross always accompanies it, so that if you will be a student thereof, you must needs prepare yourself for that cross which you began to learn before you learned your alphabet. And Christ requires it of everyone that will be his disciple, therein not swerving from the common manner, of callings or locations, for no profession or kind of life wants its cross. So that they are much mistaken who think that the profession of the gospel, which the devil most envies, the world does hates, and the flesh most complains at, can be without a cross. Let us therefore enable us to take up our cross by denying ourselves. John Bradford, from prison, February 18, 1555. By grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. Ephesians 2 verses 8 and 9.
Reading from the complete book of Christian heroes, over 200 stories of courageous people who suffered for Jesus, compiled by Dave and Nita Jackson. This is the Eternal Church of Jesus Christ, the record.